Hello, thank you for coming for my 2025 TED Talk. Today I'll be talking about boxing, and more specifically, the impact of boxing on cognitive functions and mental well-being. Before we start, I want you guys to think about a time when you had a moment of motivation, where you really thought to yourself how you were going to improve or make change in your life. Now I want you to think about what you did when that moment finally came. Did you take action and did you actually change, or did you sit on the couch and binge watch your favorite show? I can relate to this because before I started boxing, I definitely had moments where I didn't really want to change, or I had that feeling and that motivation, but I never had any follow through. Once I started boxing, I feel like that changed significantly. I had a change in mentality, and I completely changed how I thought about things when it came to hard tasks or improving myself. This is where I like to bring up the 1% rule. When I started boxing, I started giving myself where if I could do something significantly good, or if I got better at something, I would try even harder to get better at it the next day. So for example, if I could do 25 push-ups in a minute, I would try and do 26 the next day. And this is basically just setting new goals and limits every time I get good at something. This entire idea shifted my entire mentality. With this in mind, I asked the question, can participation in boxing create a focused mentality and improve cognitive and physical functions? I chose to research this because for me, I saw noticeable changes in my mentality, emotional control, and physical and cognitive functions. And you may be wondering what I mean by cognitive functions. This is things like anticipation, hand-to-eye coordination, reaction speed, reaction time, or overall reaction. Physical improvements could be things like strength, cardio. Emotional changes could be things like handling stress. And shift in mentality could be things like having a very competitive mentality ever since starting boxing or a combat sport. Boxing can be very beneficial if you ever want to be faster, think quicker, and improve your cognitive functions. But it's important to know the negative side effects of boxing, as boxing is a very barbaric sport. Competitive boxers specifically are constantly putting themselves at risk of head trauma. Repetitive head trauma or head injury can deteriorate cognitive functions and lead to CTE, Parkinson's, or even death. CTE is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a degenerative brain disease that is harmful to the use of motor functions. Repetitive head trauma leads to neurodegeneration and accumulation of abnormal proteins in the brain, which affect motor and cognitive functions. A great example of this is a well-known boxer, Muhammad Ali. Phenomenal boxing record, but as he got older, he had developed Parkinson's. Parkinson's is things like having tremors in your hands, not being able to walk correctly or keep balance, or not being able to use your motor function well. On a broader note, 2025 has had 3 deaths because of boxing. These deaths being Gabriel Oluwaseun, John Cooney, and Ubaid Hayter. These deaths are important to note because boxing can be very dangerous if you are not careful. And it is not necessarily that these boxers did not train correctly or they did anything wrong when it came to fighting. They just simply took too much damage to the head. And this may drive you away from boxing, but it's important to know that there's ways around this. This is things like HIIT training, which is high intermittent intensity training, incorporating boxing training into your daily schedule, training in a boxing beginning class, and just avoid competing altogether. As boxing is a great outlet or a source if you just want to get fit, as boxing is shown to improve cardio and strength. When it comes to physical improvements, I looked into articles that had a parent introduce boxing into their kid's life. From the parent's perspective, they said, I definitely think his fitness has come up and I'd like him to keep it up. From the kid's perspective, he stated, physically, I've got more stamina to do things longer, and also stronger so I can lift heavier things. Other articles also came to a similar conclusion, stating improvements included decreased inflammation and joint pain, improved hand speed and reaction time, as well as noticeable improvement in cardiovascular and muscular endurance. I would like to now shift into emotional improvements. As training in general can definitely increase someone's self-esteem or improve someone's confidence, but boxing and combat sports specifically have an improvement on stress and aggression control. And this is because in boxing and combat sports, people are often taking out their anger or their stress on a bag or hitting a mitt. I looked into a meta-analysis that supports this. Johnny Bosterol stated, studies show significant improvement in overall mood, self-esteem, confidence, perceived physical ability, performance in school, overall well-being, and mental health. Another article I looked into also concluded to a similar idea, stating, the higher the number of years of training, the higher self-efficiency and self-control. Articles that supported this are also similar to the ones with the kid and the parent. The parent stated, he's not so aggressive as he used to be, and he's actually calmed down a lot. He's quite confident now. And from the kid's perspective, they stated, I've met new friends, the exercise is good, and I'm really just having fun. Never mind, excuse me, sorry. Main idea of the data found is that boxing has a very big effect on emotions, controlling aggression, and has a large mental impact. Boxing should always be looked at like this, as a great source or a great outlet of aggression and stress. To shift into the cognitive function aspect of boxing, in boxing specific in combat sports, this is things like anticipation, hand-to-eye coordination, decision-making, and problem solving. Within my research, I found that fighters with more experience have better cognitive skills like reaction speed, anticipation, accuracy, and attention. Main topics looked at in this data was the difference in skill and experience, and how that has an effect on cognitive functions. Rousseau G, a researcher at Alma Mater Durham University, took 5 participants from 3 different sports, those sports being boxing, French boxing, and karate. Each of those participants took a visual test that tested their reaction speed, their overall reaction, and the accuracy of their reaction. The main difference that was seen was the difference in experience. When fighters who had more experience had taken the visual test, they all had the same reaction, but those with more experience were more accurate and paid more attention to the upper portion of their target. According to the researcher, he stated, another thing shown was that more experienced fighters held a longer gaze than the younger fighters and also paid more attention to the upper portion of the target. This is interesting to people who are looking to compete or just improve cognitive functions in their day-to-day life. This is things like making good decisions quickly, having good reaction time and attention to detail, possibly while driving, or in a work setting. It helps to have good attention to detail and be a quick problem solver when following tasks or instructions from a boss. To shift over to competitive mentality is very important in boxing and combat world. As there's not much statistical data to support this, as it's more of a personal experience, but I did find some anecdotal evidence that supports this. On a Twitter feed, an MMA fighter stated, I mentally feel as if I'm able to apply the disciplines learned in boxing to modern day tasks. I break down the task and set forth on my goal. I can relate to this because in training, I like to go 100% and give 100% effort. And using that as a habit, I can take that into other aspects of my life like work or school. The habit forming is backed up by decades of research that consistently showed that mere repetition of an action in a consistent context leads to the action being activated upon exposure to those contextual clues. That action being, for example, giving 100% effort in training. The contextual clues could be training, like running, sprints, push-ups, etc., or in a work environment, that could be doing the dishes, sweeping, mopping, or in school, that could be writing a thesis or even doing this TED Talk. I would like to bring this back to the 1% rule. It's important to note that in boxing, like I stated before, I would like to be 1% better than I was the day before. And I want to carry this over into other aspects of my life. For instance, in work, I want to be able to do the dishes more efficiently, or I want to be able to do the best TED Talk that I possibly can in the most confident way that I can. And this involves creating new goals and limits every day. I think this way because every challenge we face in life is just another limit set by fear. Fear is what defines a person. It's not what they're scared of, but it's what they do about it. For me personally, I'm scared I'm not going to walk across the stage when we graduate, or I'm scared I'm going to get knocked out when I get in a ring with an opponent, or I'm even more scared of my boss when she yells at me for doing the dishes bad. But what do I do about this? Do I sit around on the couch waiting for change to happen or anything different to become in my life? No, I make change and I become that change. In school aspects, I try hard on my TED Talk or I try hard on my thesis to get a good grade. In work, I make sure to sweep with as much effort as I can and whatever entails with that. And in training, I make sure to train as hard as I can, sprint as hard as I can, become as powerful and fast as I can. Because of boxing, I've improved how I choose to spend my time, how hard I work, and now it is fully up to myself how I can, it is now fully in my control where I go in life. This process involves making goals, setting new limits every time I get better at something. Every day, I push to be 1% stronger, 1% faster, 1% smarter, and 1% better. The final implications of my research shows me that boxing can have multiple effects to a person depending how much time they choose to give it. To bring it back to my original question, can participation in boxing create a focused mentality and improve cognitive and physical functions? Yes. Boxing can definitely have an impact on these aspects depending on how much time a person chooses to give it. Excuse me. I would like to research further into the idea behind motivation and what drives someone to be motivated. For instance, do you need motivation to be disciplined? And can motivation be formed into a habit of discipline? To conclude my talk, if you have a goal in mind, you must take the necessary steps to reach that goal. Initially, it is fully up to oneself what they do, and if you want to make change, you must be the change. Or, in a more poetic sense, to achieve something you've never had, you must do things you have never done. Thank you for attending my 2025 TED Talk. I will now answer questions.